What you're about to listen to is a Bry-Fy production.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bry-Fy podcast. I'm your host, Bry-Fy, your comics guy, and this week we're coming off me being sick and just, we had an interview before that, so it's been a while since we've had just a plain, regular show where I just bore you to death for the next 30 minutes, and I figured, we got a lot to get through today. There's not too much, there were some big things that happened while we have been away, and I just kind of want to focus on the stuff that I'm more interested in. So I've able to narrow down to a few news stories that we'll get into, and then after all that, we're going to take a look at a comic book character I've been really interested in and her story. The character's name is Aero, who is from the Marvel Universe, was introduced in War of the Realms, that whole Thor shenanigan shit that was been going on in the realms. And I was really interested in this comic mainly because of the artwork. It had like an anime / manga style that really intrigued me and wanted me to pick it up. So I decided to read Aero #1 when it when it came out on Marvel Unlimited, and that led me to kind of try to figure out her origin story. So it brought me back to War of the Realms, a side story with the new Atlas. I can't remember. I thought it was New Atlas, Agents of Atlas. Or whatever the shit. So we'll get into that later after all the nifty nerd news. Other bit of news that I can think of before we get into everything today. This past weekend, yesterday actually, Saturday, because you'll be listening to this on Monday, I had the chance to go hang out at a Comicpalooza 365 event. The Comicpalooza 365 stuff is like events for Comicpalooza that they do throughout the entire year. It's a lot of fun. I got invited as one of many podcasters to go to the Secret Group in Houston, Texas. It's like a club / it looks like a concert venue and stuff. We had, hosted by I Am Geek Show, they had a Jeopardy-style battle royale between podcasts, and myself and Walker the Geek teamed up for a two-man team, and we took on a bunch of different podcasts, fun podcasts, podcasts that we're friends with all around the Houston area. We were able to make it to the final round. Winner got to go up against I Am Geek, the I Am Geek people at their show in Comicpalooza, and we ended up losing to the Cult 45 podcast, which Cult 45, Brandon and Randy, good friends of the show, just good guys in general. Plus, they're gold, man. They're comedy gold, those two together. And me and Walker trying to, it was like David versus Goliath, like quite literally. And it was a lot of fun. We had a blast. I got in some good zingers and one-liners. Crowd seemed to be pretty into it. So we had a bunch of fun. However, we didn't win. But you know what? I think having a blast, getting to talk to all our friends, interact like that was a win in itself. I'm getting some video together of that day, pictures and stuff. I'll post it on YouTube, and I'll share it with everyone. So that way you can kind of just get a little feel of what it was like and how much fun we all had up on stage. But that's pretty much it, guys. I don't have anything planned right now. I'm talking to a few creators, looking at some conventions coming up within the next month or two to see what I might be attending and who might be coming on the show. Because like I said, I want to feature more creators on the show. They're the people I enjoy talking to the most, whether they create comic books, artwork, written material, or just other podcasts. I want them on the show. I want to talk to them, pick their brain. Maybe I can improve my show, because I'm garbage. Let's face it, I'm hot garbage and a freaking mess. But you're here listening to it, so no. Anyway, if you guys do like the show or want to hear more and stuff, you can always check everything out on my Podbean website. That's bryfypodcast.podbean.com. Of course, Bry-Fy is Bryfy podcast, because that's how I spell my name. And you can always find me on all the social medias: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Snapchat, everything you can find at Bry-Fy Podcast. And then if you want to play Xbox Live with me, I'm Bry-Fy Pod on Xbox. Right now I'm playing Borderlands 3, and that's pretty much it. That really takes my time. I want to get back to some more Division stuff. I got both Division 1 and 2, but Borderlands is taking up most of my time. So, it is what it is. Anyway, let's move on to some nifty nerd news. All right, guys, up first for the nifty nerd news, we are going over to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it looks like they've lost a director for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which, it's funny. I think before that probably would have bothered me, directors leaving movies, but Marvel seems to just, what am I trying to say? Marvel has like a formula where you can almost just put whatever pieces you want, and it's still going to come out good. Like, they're still going to get a movie that does well. Maybe on the namesake alone of Marvel, it's almost like they're getting too big to fail at this point. But you look at Endgame, Endgame took Marvel's worst movie, arguably their worst movie in Thor Dark World, and made it an important part of their whole storyline, And so, I'm not worried if Marvel, if they lose a director and somehow the movie's not as good as we thought it was going to be, I'm not worried because I know that it's still going to be important. But then, that could probably be a bad thing too if you think about it, we don't watch the movies because they're good anymore. We watch them because we need to know this information going forward, because that's what's going to be real important, not this garbage piece of shit. But I don't know. It's interesting. Supposedly, I think, directors and people leave for all the same reasons. We've seen just, creative differences. So we're going to part ways. And I don't know. Creative differences is the most vague thing that you can give anyone, because I've seen people leave for creative differences, but they remain as producers, or they still play a small role. And it's if you really saw things happening differently, in your creative style, why stick around and help? Because they're still not going to go with your creative style. And if they were going to use your input more, they would have, bent the knee to let you do what you wanted to do. So creative differences, I guess, could just mean so much. I think creatively I should be making more money. And they're like, that's imagination, not creativity. And so we'll see. Of course, Benedict Cumberbatch's coming back. What's his name? Chiwetel Ejiofor, Rachel McAdams, and Benedict Wong are presumably all going to return. And then I believe, Scarlet Witch, Elizabeth Olsen, is supposed to be in this movie as well. So pretty stoked to see what happens. I'm regardless if this director's leaving, I'm still pretty excited to see what happens. Talking about directors and Disney side Marvel. Well, now we're moving over to Star Wars. Looks like Taika Waititi might possibly have a Star Wars movie in the mix. Nothing's been confirmed. This is all rumors and stuff, but wouldn't it be a badass rumor to come true? Taika Waititi has kind of been fire these past few years with Thor Ragnarok. I've gone back and watched some of his past stuff because of Thor and his acting. He's funny. Jojo Rabbit, and now maybe getting his teeth into something a little bigger. And what we've seen with Star Wars, while maybe the main storyline stuff has kind of been hit or miss with fanboys, it seems like a lot of the side stuff, like Rogue One and even Solo, people seem to really like those movies, where they might take familiar Star Wars, and of course The Mandalorian too, but although I was looking more at movies, it seems like they take familiar Star Wars, but make it's a different story that doesn't tie in with just the Skywalkers, the main saga, and people seem to really be behind those movies. And I think giving Taika Waititi something like that, or even his own Star Wars series a la Mandalorian, I mean, he directed an episode. He played, IG-11 or GN-11, I can't remember the robot's name. Badass robot who, spoiler alert, self-destructs to save everyone because Baby Yoda probably forced him to do it because Baby Yoda's a murderer and eats things. Baby Yoda's probably true evil. Sith Yoda is what I'm thinking. But I don't know. I'm pretty interested. It's a rumor that I keep hearing. Although, like I said, hasn't been confirmed. But wouldn't that be so fucking badass if it was? Like, I mean, come on. Taika Waititi, pretty awesome. You know what else was pretty awesome that I didn't, like, blew me out of the water? And, like, I had forgotten that Sony was even doing this. There is a Morbius trailer that's out there, and I'm sure most of you have seen it by now because this came out, on the 13th, so almost 2 weeks ago. But this hit me out of, like, just sucker punched me right in the face when I saw this because I was like, oh, Morbius, they're really doing that fucking shit? And Jared Leto, last time he was involved with this, like, any kind of comic book character, people didn't like it. And so it's Sony. Sony's been kind of hit or miss with their live action stuff. So I was kind of like, but this Morbius trailer looks so cool. Jared Leto as like Morbius looks freaking awesome. I'm down for this. This looks creepy. This looks action packed. This looks like a lot of fun. This looks different than anything I've seen. I'm really excited to see what happens. Sony is maybe starting to realize what they have and what they need to work with. Like, don't worry about their heroes and stuff. Like Venom, I haven't really seen, nor do I have a desire to. Some people seem to have liked it. But I think Sony's starting to realize, hey, we have these characters that we can really play with, that the Marvel Universe and like people like with mainstream Marvel might not like freak out about, you know, because it's like, oh, we have a little more creative control, or like we can do stuff a little bit differently with these, we'll call them just side characters. But with this trailer and like just the way they presented it, it just has me really stoked, man. Like I excuse me, I'm getting choked up here because it's so beautiful. No, because I'm sick and dying like Morbius. This episode brought to you by H2O, the lifeblood of life. Water. But so it looks like I'm trying to look for a synopsis here. So of course I've never been too big of a fan of Morbius. I've just known he's a vampire. I saw him in a side story, or like a comic book annual during Superior Spider-Man, where Superior Spider-Man fucks his shit up like bad, like freaks out Aunt May because Morbius had taken Aunt May for whatever reason. Superior Spider-Man steps in and was like burning him with lights and like ripping his fingernail, like all kinds of weird shit, man. And like it, like you feel bad. Well, of course, you know, Superior Spider-Man is by no stretch of the imagination an actual superhero, or at this point he wasn't. Like, he didn't have that moment that really changes his life to be a hero. He's still very much Dr. Octopus as Spider-Man. So yeah, my first introduction with Morbius, not that great, man. But it looks like Jared Leto's version, it looks like he has a disease. He's trying to find a way to cure himself with like whatever kind of blood disease that he has, and whatever quote unquote cure he finds ends up kind of turning him into a vampire, whether that's because he accidentally uses vampire blood or whatnot. I don't know. Do I give a shit? Probably not. Trailer looks badass, and so that's really all I care about. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got on that one. Like I said, it looks interesting. I want to see it. It's kind of one of the first, like, I wasn't really into seeing Venom, but Morbius has me way more interested. And I think it's because I'm just kind of done with, what's his name? Bane or Tom Hardy. Like, I'm just tired of him. I'm Tom Hardy burnt out, but not Jared Leto burnt out. Not yet. Joker didn't ruin it for me. Or, well, his version, not the movie Joker, but anyway, let's move on. So, coming from a Instagram post from The Walking Dead, it looks like they're planning a brand new story, like a 2-season Walking Dead story, going to be coming out April 12th of this year, which I think is kind of cool, man. I think this is a pretty neat thing. Look, the main Walking Dead story has kind of fallen off, at least on the TV show side of things, where it's boring now. Like, I don't care. Like, I didn't care that they killed Carl. I don't care that Rick left anymore. Like, I'm just numb to The Walking Dead now. They've kind of just, I don't like the direction they've taken from it. I don't like where it all has happened from it. And so I've just stopped watching it. But Fear the Walking Dead has actually been really interesting, and they've even crossed over with some characters, which has been really cool. And it's just a fresh story. It kind of is what's been really going for it, is it's just a fresh take on, the same shit that we've been getting. And now seeing them say, hey, let's do another story where we're going to just take whole new characters where no one has any idea what they're about, no idea what's going to happen. Whereas, with the main story, comic readers, we kind of had an idea of what was going to happen, where they were going to go. This time, anything can happen. They could all die. They could all survive. We don't know. Well, it's The Walking Dead. Survival is pretty low. But I'm interested. I'm interested to see where this goes. April's quite a bit of ways off from now, so I'll probably try reminding you guys again when it gets closer. But pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff. You know what else is pretty cool? Looks like Marvel Endgame has gotten some Oscar nominations, which is pretty neat. I mean, you're starting to see comic book movies get recognized for what they're doing, Mainly it's for, like, visual effects and costume design. What Black Panther, I think, won for costume design. Was it, or whatever year it came out, 2 years ago or whatever. So getting to see Endgame on there, they got the nomination for. Oh well, they won Best Visual Effects at the 2020 Academy Awards, and they've been nominated for bringing the Avengers and their final battle against Thanos to life on the big screen for the Oscars. So that's pretty cool stuff, man. They've even had 2 Critic Choice Awards for Endgame. So it's not only bringing a bunch of money in for Marvel and Disney, it's bringing in awards for Marvel and Disney. Well, I mean, Disney is no stranger to awards, but getting to see Marvel movies, like, get this kind of shit is pretty freaking awesome, man. Like, I'm pretty happy by this. And then the last bit of news I wanted to bring up to you guys before I just bore you all to death is it is finally confirmed that Bill Murray will be officially reprising his role as Peter Venkman in the new Ghostbusters Afterlife movie, which, I mean, we all kind of knew it was going to happen, but I'm pretty stoked that it is happening. I mean, that's really all I had to say. Hey, look, I am getting... Oh, someone sent me a live video. What is this live video? Oh, Colt 45 sent me a video. Oh, it's me and Walker the Geek from last night. We're not going to talk about that. We can't, because it's going to be on my YouTube. Anyway, sorry for the pause break there. Anyways, guys, that's pretty much it for the Nifty Nerd News. I want to thank you guys for sticking around this far, even though still a little under the weather, still trying to get my throat 100%, so I probably didn't go too crazy with talking about the nerd news and stuff. And it's like I can feel like the mucus build up the longer I talk and I don't swallow or clear my throat. So I'm going to take a break to just cough my lungs out and drink all the water that I can to flush my system, and then we'll come back with some comic book reviews.
Hey everybody, this is Nerd Bomber here, one of the co-hosts of the Online Warriors podcast. Our weekly podcast started as a way for 3 friends to keep in touch and discuss their passion for movies, gaming, technology, and entertainment. And since then, we've grown into a fantastic online community. Every Wednesday, we release a new episode discussing the latest nerdy news, and then we go hands-on with our weekly adventures and a fun trivia show. Sound interesting? Check us out on every podcast platform, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or hit us up at onlinewarriorspodcast.com.
All right, guys, thanks for coming back and joining us at the Bry-Fy podcast. Today, we are taking a look at a character I've been keeping a close eye on called Aero, who was introduced in the War of the Realms storyline, part of like the new Agents of Atlas or whatever the fuck it's called. I don't know. Basically, it's Asian Avengers. Like I don't know a nice way to say that. The Pacific Avengers. Pacific Avengers. And so I don't even know where to start with this. Well, I'll start where I started. I started reading Aero first because I was interested in the artwork. The artwork was really awesome, and that's really the book I wanted to focus on here. And what's happening is just kind of a day in her life. She's from China, and she is a building designer and like an architect, and one of her buildings has come to life to destroy the entire city, which upsets her. Her power set, though, is like wind manipulation, which is kind of badass, man. She can fly and do all this cool shit, which I really like. You get a touch of her personal life and her boyfriend and how she's trying to figure out a way to balance work, boyfriend life, and superhero life. And you kind of get just like that little quick meet and greet power set introduction, and we're off to different adventures where it turns out a friend of hers, I think her superhero name was Wave, who helped out during the War of the Realms stuff, is in trouble because the group that she's a part of, that they're all a part of, they're basically decommissioning her or kicking her out because she went out of her boundaries that she's supposed to protect. Like they have certain sections of like the Pacific, not just the ocean, but like Asia and Japan and China and like I guess the Philippines, all that kind of stuff. They have specific areas that they have to watch over and protect. And well, when War of the Realms happened, Wave, Aero, I think Amadeus Cho version of Hulk, Shang-Chi, and someone else, they were all brought together and had to go like to the North Pole or one of the North or South Poles because the ice caps were going to be melted by this evil fire bitch who was part of whatever realm and shit, like things, Marvel comics. So she gets pulled away to save the entire planet, and then she's punished because she left her backyard, basically. And so you kind of follow up a little bit on that here in this comic book, and of course they get attacked and they got to solve that and continue in the next issue, which wasn't out on Marvel Unlimited at the time. But that's what led me to be like, well, what the fuck? Like, what the hell's going on? Like, I don't, like, that was my only thing. Like, I really didn't grasp what was going on reading this first issue. It's just a quick introduction, shows like, hey, I'm a strong businesswoman, I'm a strong superhero, and I'm strong-willed against my boyfriend type stuff. Like, I got that bitch in check. Like, she's got whoosh wrapped around him. She's like, hey, I got to go save the world. You're going to have to wait. And he's like, yes, ma'am. Which is how all men should be. Just, yes, ma'am. Looking at you. No, I'm just kidding. So, not really grasping what was going on, trying to figure out the whole shit with Wave and all that, I decided to jump back into War of the Realms after we reviewed it, like 3 or 4 episodes ago. Just jumped back into that shit and started reading the new Agents of Atlas. And that's where you find out, of course, like with any new introductory team, you have to have half of the people you need to know, which they got, like I said, Amadeus Cho, Miss Marvel's in it, which was the biggest cop-out for me because she immediately leaves to go to New York, which I was pretty stoked on. I was like, oh my God, Miss Marvel's going to be part of this team? Like, I'm in. She's like my favorite character. I love her to death. Kamala Khan is bae. And then she yeets out of there. And I was really sad by that. I almost put the book down because I was like, this is fucked up, man. I don't want to read this shit. But I pulled through for Aero. I said, hey, I love Aero's artwork. I want to see what happens in here. And it's not the same artist, so it was definitely a chore to read through this series. And not a lot interesting happens. Like, it really kind of struggles around, or like the story goes around Amadeus's struggle with being a leader and kind of getting over himself because he's made mistakes as a leader and he doesn't trust himself fully, you know. So a lot of it's revolving around that storyline and where you're getting introduced to some of these new characters like Wave, Aero. There's this crazy lava fire god who actually turns out to be a cyborg. So she's a lot like, what was it, the Human Torch in his first iteration. He's actually an android. It's kind of what this girl is. Wow, I just really thought about that. Like, she's literally the Human Torch because, I mean, she was presented as like this fire queen, but then like something happened. Like, I think her face gets ripped off. Like, she's supposed to die, and it's like, oh shit, you're actually a cyborg. You're not gonna die. Okay, let's keep fighting because comics, you know, which I feel like is just how you just rationalize everything. Like, oh, this guy should have died, but now he's a superhero and can grow legs out of his ears. Comics. So anyway, they go throughout their story trying to fight back against whatever fire realm is. Like Malekith's. Oh, well, Malekith is the main guy who's promised all these other realms, parts of the world. Well, this one, the fire realm people, they're like, well, we want the whole world, bitch. So we're going to go melt the ice caps so that the waters flood everyone out. And then we'll just turn this into one like blazing inferno. And it's our planet now. And of course, the Asian Avengers, oh God, why am I saying that? They step up with not Hulk, Hulk Cho, and save the day because if they didn't, I'm guessing I wouldn't have an Aero comic to read, which got me interested in the first place. So, spoiler alert, good guys win. Rarely do the bad guys win unless they're being good. Like, that's what like, bad guys can only win if they're acting as a good guy or as a, like, neutral guy trying to stop a badder guy. Like, that's how comic books work, you know. Otto Octavius gets a win because he decides to become Spider-Man and beat the living shit out of badder superheroes than him. But he's still a bad guy. He's like the Punisher, but a little scarier because, you know, octopus arms out of your back. That's pretty fucked up. Anywho, so getting that backstory on that and getting to see why Wave gets kicked out and why she's upset and why Aero comes to help her and stuff. Actually, I don't even understand why Aero's like, hey, you're my bud now. Because, I mean, other than they just fought together for like a few days, it wasn't like they were like really close friends. Like, it doesn't seem like this team that they're all part of, I forget what the team's called, that all these people are part of, doesn't seem like they're very close. Like, they're not having barbecues or company softball tournaments or shit like that. So, yeah. I don't know. I had a lot of questions. There was not a lot of answers given, and it didn't make any more questions. So I guess that's a good thing. But at the same time, like, I'm losing interest. Like, I mean, I feel like I'm losing interest the more I talk about this book. Really, what only struck me really cool about Aero was the artwork. You know, it's something that I really thought was really cool, something that had me really interested because I'm a big fan of like anime and manga or manga, whatever you want to say. I'm Texan, so shut up. So it had me really excited. You know, I love when they do stuff like this. Marvel, I remember a few years back had like anime and manga artists come together to do some covers for some of their books, which I thought were so badass. I would have loved to see more interior work in that style, you know. I would love for Marvel to have like manga series where it's just like slice of life stuff, man. I love slice of life stuff. I've said it so many times on this podcast. Like, slice of life is my bread and butter, man. My slice of bread and butter. And so if Marvel teamed up with some studio to do some really cool stuff like that, I would love it. Like, somehow... And I'm pausing because it's either fireworks I'm hearing off in the distance or there's a gang war going on. It's pretty far off in the distance, but I can hear it. And it's not my desk. I thought it was my desk. Like, my desk kind of moves a little bit and creaks, but no, it's like audible bangs from pretty far out. And I can't tell if they're gun bangs or firework bangs, which, you know, it's still January, and so people probably still have fireworks and are probably getting rid of them. It's rained now, so we're not under a burn ban, so that's good. So that's a good time to pop fireworks. And that's country living. Anyway, guys, as far as rating goes for Aero and just her character and story overall, and even New Agents of Atlas, it's really a neutral charge for me. I was really in on that artwork for Aero. I really love the character design. I love the power set. I love just how everything looks visually. The story, though, kind of this first issue, I need to give it some more, obviously. Like with any book, I always, before I start reviewing stuff, I want to have more of an idea of what I'm getting into. But I really just wanted to jump into this because I really interested in how Aero looked. But I'm going to need more time. So far, though, it's a neutral charge. It's just the story really didn't grip me that much. But the artwork is really awesome. I really enjoy the artwork. I enjoy Aero's character and how she interacts with the world and other characters. But story-wise, it just doesn't seem very interesting. We'll see going forward what they decide to do and how they pull it all together. As far as the New Agents of Atlas, which was a limited series during the War of the Realms stuff, it was... that's a negative charge for me. Artwork was okay. It was solid artwork. Story just wasn't interesting. It was just a side story. Didn't really play any big factor to me in my mind. Didn't play a big factor into the main story. So it was really just a side story. It wasn't a tie-in or anything like that. It was just a side story set within War of the Realms universe. So you can definitely do without that one. I'm going to revisit Aero. I promise I will revisit Aero probably after a few months. I'll give her another shot to see if things have picked up, and I really enjoyed the book. But that's it for the Bry-Fy podcast this week, guys. I want to thank you so much for listening. I want to thank everyone who went out to the secret group on Saturday night to support me and all the other Comic Palooza podcasts. I want to thank Comic Palooza for having me there, and I Am Geek for remembering me to have me on the show. And we were one win away. So I'm kind of a big deal, guy. No, at least out of like the 10 podcasts that they picked to be in the show, I was second best with Walker the Geek. We were second best to Colt 45. So obviously we need that fan base. We need something. No. Like when we won, we absorbed their fan bases. Like that was the goal. Like if you lose, you have to give up podcasting. But I feel like second place is like winning anyway because you both made it to the finals. You both got to play in the last game. And that's really all that matters. Anyway, I'm done talking. My throat is starting to hurt. And that probably means I'm not better yet. So we're going to get out of here, and you guys can enjoy the rest of your Monday. Bry-Fy out. Oh, yeah, and during the competition, I called Draco Malfoy a little blonde fuckboy.